If you want your cameras and lenses to stay in good working condition for years to come, you need a proper place to store them in. Not just in a bag, not in your closet, and definitely not your refrigerator. Hi, my name is Justin. I'm an Instagram photographer, a YouTube filmmaker, and a full-time dad. And I make videos about photography, filmmaking, travel, and gear. As a person who's starting out in photography, it's very easy to be caught up in checking out the latest cameras, the best lenses that you can get to start taking photos, that it almost becomes kind of secondary to think about the proper way of storing all of your new gear. For those of you who've been around and have been following the channel for quite some time now, then you know that we've recently decided to move into a different country. But what most of you don't know is that we finally moved into a more permanent flat here in Vienna, and that all of the things that we packed in the Philippines arrived just a few days ago. So I put the stuff I used most often and hand carried them on the way here. But most of my gear, I put into a DIY dry box that I made. Not only was my gear intact, but there was absolutely zero fungus growth on them at all, despite being stored for a little bit of time. So in this video, we're gonna talk about why you need a dry box in the first place, the things you'll need, how you're gonna build it, how much it's gonna cost you, and of course, the pros and cons of doing something like this instead of getting yourself a more professional dry cabinet. You'll want to store your gear in a place that's relatively dry so fungus won't have a chance to grow. Fungus is a camera's worst enemy, and they can quickly get inside your gear and your lenses, infect your other stuff without you knowing. Storing your gear without the proper protection for long periods of time is a surefire way for fungus to take over. It exposes them to humidity, which is an environment that fungus thrives in. By being able to control the humidity, you can prevent all of this altogether, keeping your gear in tip-top shape. The first thing you'll need is a box to put your stuff in, but it can't be just any other box or Tupperware. It has to be transparent and airtight. If by any chance you're one of the people or someone in your house decided to give baking a try during this pandemic, then chances are you might have already one lying around. And it's a good thing because this is going to be the most expensive item on this list, and it isn't even that expensive. This is an 11-liter airtight food container made by BioKips, and I bought this in one of the local mall hardwares back in the Philippines. I opted for this size because 1, I didn't have too much things to put inside them at the time, and 2, I figured that if I needed more, then it was very easy for me to get a similar box of the same size, making this thing modular, lightweight, and very easy for me to bring and pack extra gear that I could otherwise not put inside my bag if I needed to. The next item you need is a desiccant, or what's more commonly known as silica gels. These things that usually come in boxes of shoes or inside your bags when you buy one are actually very helpful, and you can use them for this project if you have some lying around. But take note that those types of silica gels, while they're very helpful and very effective, the older they are and the more they've been exposed to humidity, the less effective they're going to be. This makes them disposable in that sense. And you have two options here. You can go to your nearest hardware or a Japanese thrift store and look for a similar type of disposable silica gels, or go get yourself a pack of reusable ones. Either way, you really won't go wrong with both of the options, but I do encourage you to get a pack of reusable gels because it's so easy to use. You only need to heat them in a microwave, and I find they're gonna be a little bit more long-term than disposable ones. The next thing you need is a hygrometer. It sounds expensive, but it's not. This is what's going to tell you the levels of humidity inside your dry cabinet. Because even though we're trying to reduce the levels of humidity, we're not actually looking to get all of it out. The safe levels of humidity inside a cabinet or a dry box is around 35 to 45%. This makes it non-conducive for fungus growth, but at the same time safe enough that the lubricants and rubber in your gear, your lenses and camera don't dry up, which is very important for their continuous operation. You know what they say, too much of something is bad enough. So let's talk about how much this will all cost you. This is the 11-liter BioKips airtight container and it cost me around 1,200 pesos. A pack of reusable silica gel cost around 150 pesos. The hygrometer I got for around 220 pesos. It requires a single AAA battery, which I just got from somewhere inside the house, so this could be free. And lastly, a cloth, which you can also have lying around the house. This brings your total to about 1,570 pesos or just around $30. For my DIY dry box, I opted to put a microfiber cloth inside to serve as a cushion. It's really quite flexible in the sense that you can actually stack your gear in any way that you want to, and it just takes a little bit of effort in making sure that your gear is secured inside. And once I'm happy with the arrangement, I put the silica gel and the hygrometer last, either on the sides or on the top, because they're easy to squeeze in. Plus, I like being able to see the reading just by looking over or on the sides. That's why I mentioned earlier that it's really important that you get a transparent airtight container and not an opaque one. So let's talk about some pros and cons here. Now, the biggest reason I went for a DIY solution over a professional dry cabinet is of course the price. This thing is cheaper than the cheapest and smallest dry cabinet that I know of, which is the Anbon AB21C. Now, I may be wrong, so do let me know in the comment section below if there's something that's smaller and cheaper than that. Anyway, this brings me to my second point. The BioKips box is rated for 11 liters, while the Anbon 21C is rated for 21, which means it's supposed to be double the capacity of what my BioKips box can handle. But I find that because of the way a professional dry cabinet is laid out, it opens up in the front versus a BioKips box that opens from the top. I think that I'm able to stack more of my gear on top of each other without worrying them toppling over if I do take the lid off, which means that for the same amount of items that I'm able to squeeze inside my 11-liter box, I'm gonna need to get an even bigger box, which means I'm gonna be spending a whole lot more money. Now, again, I don't own a professional dry box, so do let me know in the comment section below if what I'm saying is crazy talk. But I am positive and I do know just how much I'm able to put inside a BioKips box. Next reason, having smaller containers like this makes it super portable. In case I needed to bring additional gear that I can't fit in my bag, then I can just bring in one box instead of bringing a bigger dry cabinet. It makes it modular in that sense, and know that I can just stack them on top of each other if I needed to. Reason number 4 is that a dry box like this won't require power at all versus a professional dry cabinet. This brings me to my last point. There is very little maintenance required for something like this. Again, I left my gear for about 2 months in the ship or wherever they were kept at before arriving to us, and there was absolutely no fungus growth at all. Under normal conditions, I may find that I reheat the reusable desiccants once a month or maybe at least twice. So now let's talk about some of the few things I don't like with this setup. Starting with the way it looks. This does not look as aesthetically pleasing as a professional dry cabinet at all. But this was something that I didn't mind very much. Next, a professional dry cabinet is made out of sturdier materials. Their quality is going to be better. They're made of metal or aluminum. My third reason is that with a professional dry cabinet, you're able to set the levels of humidity that you want and simply just forget about it. With a DIY box like this, there's a little bit of trial and error involved. You might need to open the lid and let a little bit of air in, or reduce or add some desiccants inside, depending on the situation. But once you figure that out in the beginning, I don't think you'll really ever need to do that again. So here's my final thoughts. Deciding on a dry box mostly comes down to personal preference and budget. Personally, I didn't want to spend too much on a dry cabinet, and I honestly found being able to DIY something like this was very exciting. I would much rather spend the extra cash too on some other pieces of gear. However, no matter what your preference is, I'd say that getting the proper storage for your gear is a must-have for any photographer or videographer. So if you're serious about keeping your cameras, your lenses, and your gear in best working conditions and you want to get the most out of your investment, then go get yourself a dry box. Just know that you don't really need to spend a lot of money on it if you don't want to. My name is Justin, and I hope you found a lot of value out of this video. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them for you. If you like this video, then please don't forget to hit the like button. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. And as always, thanks for watching.